Breaking news today: Putin could possibly win in Ukraine. For their spring offensive, the Pentagon briefed Ukraine on a strategy that called for a massive breakthrough and outflanking maneuvers, both of which would force the Russian army to retreat in panic. Without air superiority, which allows for attacks on distant ammunition depots and supply lines and provides close support of ground troops with fighter planes, the American army would never launch such an attack. President Biden has continued to withhold the necessary weapons from Ukraine, including fighter jets and long-range missiles. Ukraine abandoned the Pentagon plan after suffering heavy casualties at the hands of Russian helicopters and opted instead for slow but much safer advances. Former Army Vice Chief of Staff and now retired General Jack Keane has criticized the Pentagon's guidance as military malpractice. The Russian military has the upper hand in the air and secure supply lines, allowing them to hold their ground until the Ukraine's allies tire of the high cost of supplying the Ukrainian military. There is a severe shortage of artillery shells. Putin has time on his side. He has the ability to enlist a significantly larger number of young men in the military and increase the rate at which weapons and ammunition are produced. He already has access to weapons supplied by Iran and North Korea. Putin would not have invaded Ukraine if President Biden hadn't assured him that neither the United States nor NATO would resist a Russian invasion. If Ukraine had been supplied with the necessary weapons at the outset of the conflict, which they still lack, they might have been able to drive the Russians out by now. It would be tragic if NATO failed in its mission to prevent Russia's aggression under Putin against a democratic European nation. As things stand, Putin has a good chance of winning and retaining Crimea and perhaps even more of Ukraine. Beijing announced on Wednesday that next week, China will host the Third Belt and Road Forum in the nation's capital. The event is expected to draw a number of world leaders, including Vladimir Putin. Over 130 countries will be represented at the event commemorating Beijing's massive infrastructure initiative's 10th anniversary. Chinese President Xi Jinping will attend the opening ceremony of the forum and deliver a keynote speech, said Hua Chunying, a spokesperson for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In addition, he will host a welcome banquet for foreign leaders and heads of international organizations attending the forum, she said. Russian President Vladimir Putin has confirmed his attendance, marking his first trip to China since he was shunned internationally following his disastrous war in Ukraine. Often praising their no-limits partnership and economic and military cooperation, China and Russia refer to each other as strategic allies. The invasion of Ukraine prompted the Kremlin to seek closer ties with Beijing as it was increasingly isolated by the West. China has maintained its neutral stance on the war and has offered Moscow a vital diplomatic and financial lifeline while refusing to condemn the conflict. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will join his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi at next week's Belt and Road Forum, the Russian Foreign Ministry announced on Tuesday. Another Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Mao Ning, said last month, "We welcome countries and partners actively participating in the Belt and Road Initiative to come to Beijing to discuss cooperation plans and seek common development." The Foreign Ministry has announced that high-quality joint construction of the Belt and Road and joint development and prosperity will be the main topics of discussion at next week's forum. On Tuesday, Beijing released a white paper boasting that the BRI has already generated over $2 trillion in contracts around the world. As of Tuesday, it was being praised for having delivered real gains to participating countries through the BRI. According to the report, the total outstanding balance of loans for BRI projects from Exim Bank, a major BRI lender, is now 2.2 trillion yuan, $307.4 billion. China has long been accused of offering huge, unaffordable loans to low-income countries in order to trap them in a cycle of debt. Some of its partners are also becoming increasingly wary of the financial commitment. Last month, Italy announced that it was considering withdrawing from the investment scheme despite being the only major developed democracy to sign up for the deal.